Welcome back to the second half of Europe Now, coming to you this month from Hungary. The parliament behind me is the third largest in the world, 690 rooms, apparently 20 kilometres of stairs, currently ruled by the right-wing Fidesz party of Prime Minister Viktor Orban. We will be taking a close look at the issue of freedom of speech, notably in relation to the media. But first, let's meet another young Hungarian. Orsolya is a photographer who spends her time between Paris and Budapest.
A young photographer with old-school techniques.
It's a middle format camera which uses negative. It's slow to work with it, and you have to think and you have to feel the image. It's a different kind of work. 4, 2, 8.
Tu peux le faire en français? 3, 2, 1, parce que j'ai du mal à comprendre.
Bien sûr, mais
Orsolya is used to speaking different languages in her photo shoots, as she's chosen immigration as the topic of her latest project. Today her models are friends. Alex is French and Anna is Hungarian. The photographer herself lives between Paris and Budapest.
4, 2, 1. I'm looking for something which is common in different stories. We all share something very personal and very emotional, which is about having your autonomy in a different cultural environment, in a different country.
She's taking portraits of young people who have chosen to live in a foreign country, different characters from those making headlines in Europe, refugees. Orsolya has volunteered to help them when they arrive in Hungary.
I didn't take a photograph of any migrants doing something with my two hands. To do something physically and meeting them and look in the eye is just more important than take a photograph of them.
Orsolya enjoys sharing her photography knowledge. She's gone to meet a group of young foreign students studying in Budapest to take them to the Manó Mai photography house.
And he was really respected even by the surrealists.
The exhibition is dedicated to Andrei Kertész, a Hungarian who was a pillar of 20th century photography.
We can talk about the history of at that time, we can talk about the society, but we can also talk about a lot of things which are behind the photography.
Orsolya has the travel bug, but she's settling in the city where she was born, at least for the next 3 months. And while she's here, she's making the most of Budapest's famous thermal baths.
Thermal water is something that you can find everywhere in Hungary, and it's something which became a tradition of us, of our everyday life. We use it to relax.
Hungary doesn't have a coastline, but locals say what they miss out on in salt water, they make up for in over 1,000 thermal springs.
Hi, Orsolya, I'm Eve. Lovely to meet you in person. We just saw that lovely profile report from you. In general, in Hungary, are people interested in politics or not?
I really think, or maybe these are my friends, but we usually talk about issues.
What's important for Hungarians?
Today's big question is the opposition and the weakness or the possibility of political ways and political alternatives today.
Indeed, because inside this parliament today we know that it's the right-wing Fidesz party of Prime Minister Viktor Orban who's in power, but we have seen a massive rise of another right-wing party, a nationalist party, Jobbik, here in Hungary.
I think, maybe one of the reasons is because they are actually talking about real issues. Unfortunately, they are giving or they are talking about some solutions that we cannot agree with, but talking about issues which usually the government party and also the opposition just ignore.
What are those issues?
Minority questions, migration questions, also financial corruption.
What do you think is the main issue for you? What do you want the people in there to do?
I would be really interested in seeing the salaries growing as much as the prices of services in Hungary. So economically, the country has difficulties.
Cost of living, it affects us all. Well, Orsolya, I know you work as a photographer. You're studying Hungarian photographers that emigrated and worked abroad. And I believe we can go now and take a closer look at one of the most famous Hungarian war reporters. Let's go. So this tramway is really the main way people get around Budapest.
Trams are everywhere in the city and we use it frequently, every time, every day.
Very beautiful and quite an old system of transport.
The first Hungarian photographers worked on this period, and it's really spectacular to see these images because the image of today's Budapest has been designed, has been built up at the 19th century.
So, Orshaya, Capa in Colour is the name of this exhibition. You know, for me, Robert Capa was the master of black and white. It's quite a surprise, no?
It is surprising. We have his iconical images in our heads in black and white, but it's nice to see his word and our history in color.
He was born and raised in Budapest.
He was born in Budapest. His real name is Endre Friedman, which makes a little bit more Hungarian than Robert Capa. It was a name he chose to become a photographer.
He left Hungary really when he was quite young. I believe he had been arrested because he took part in a protest for leftist politics.
He was politically
active okay.
On the left side, and after the First War, a right-wing party came to power, and a lot of Hungarian and especially also Jewish origin, a lot of intellectuals left the country at that period of time.
Do you think even today, all these years on, it's still better to go abroad to have this career, to have this freedom, if you like, to publish and photograph and all of that? Do you think
I think it's not a question of freedom or not freedom. It's not I think the main reason of going internationally, it's for possibilities, economical possibilities today.
Well, since Prime Minister Viktor Orban came to power, notably since 2013, new laws have been passed and a lot of human rights organizations are questioning what they perceive as an increasingly authoritarian stance against media freedoms. Well, our reporter Alex Le Bourdon has been meeting journalists here to find out what the real story is.
Barely 5 minutes after we arrive, Hungarian policemen stop us in our tracks. We're at Hungary's border with Croatia, recording a report on the migrant crisis. But this officer says we can't film because we're missing a particular document. The police seem to want official authorization. Only the public TV channel M1 can provide. We tried to check with M1, but they turned down all our interview requests. A journalist who agreed to speak to us pulled out at the last minute.
Kaotikus, borzalmas, tragikus, így jellemzik még az ENSZ szakértői és a görög szigeteken kialakult helyzetet.
We decided to watch a news bulletin on M1 with a sociologist.
Január 1-től egész nap tegnapi nap éjfélig összesen 341.934 illegális bevándorlóval szemben intézkedtek kollégáim az ország területén.
It's extremely boring and totally manipulative. They call refugees illegal or migrants because, like that, they're criminals. It's constant propaganda to create a fear of refugees.
420 million euros. That's how much the government has ploughed into public media. It's the same amount it spends on education. But public media has not attracted big audiences. The National Media Council is made up exclusively of members of the ruling Fidesz party.
I've not read anything criticizing this organization. Nomination is one thing, what's happening in practice is quite another. And I think that's more important than who's been nominated. Any EU member state has a political character.
In the studios of Hungary's biggest private TV station, it's time for the news. The 50-minute show has the largest audience in the country, but today the politics slot is brief. It's a world of difference from the bulletins broadcast in 2014 by RTL Club. When the government introduced a 40% advertising tax on the TV channel, it started producing more critical news coverage, examining alleged corruption in the Prime Minister's entourage. RTL's only rival, TV2, was exempt from the tax. It had just been bought by a close ally of Viktor Orban.
If you're weak one day, then you do a lot of bad to your democracy. So I always ask the journalists to be brave when they ask, because that shows clearly that the press can do what they should do in a democracy.
The government backpedaled on the tax in early 2015, bringing it down to 5.3% and imposing it on all media outlets that make money from advertising. Also earlier this year, the man behind the Przemyśl media empire fell out of favour with the Prime Minister. Viktor Orban's associates had once pumped money into the newspaper Magna Nemzet, the gem of Przemyśl's empire.
This change in the relationship, which I have nothing to do with, so I cannot really tell about this story because that's their business, really strengthened our editorial independence because the owner just does not interfere.
But Viktor Orban's government still keeps a watchful eye on what's being reported. This investigative journalist used to work for Index, the largest news website in Hungary. 4 years ago, he resigned after discovering a paragraph had been taken out of one of his articles. Tamás Bodeki went on to launch Atlasso, a news site paid for by donations from citizens.
On the internet, you can get critical articles and you can read investigative journalism if you are actively seeking for it. But if you just watch the TV or you listen to the radio news, then you will never know about corruption cases or other types of wrongdoings because the mainstream is strictly controlled.
6 journalists, 300,000 readers. Atlasso's impact is still small, but it offers hope for a free press in Hungary.
Hopefully this works. So, Ursula, the time has come and Mr. Niemöller, MEP for the opposition here in Hungary, is inside waiting for you. How do you feel? Ready?
Yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, well, I'll see you after. Go ahead and best of luck.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr.
Good morning, nice to see you.
Nice to meet you too.
Where we are just now?
Well, we are in this market. I really like this market because it's a touristic and also local place. I thought it would be nice to have a
This is a very nice place for meeting. Many young Hungarians left Hungary during the last years. Why did you came back to Hungary? Do you think so? Do you see here a perspective, a possibility for your professional work in Hungary?
I'm not living in Hungary or in France or in Germany, but I can live in mobility and using this idea of mobility really as an advantage of my generation.
From my point of view, France, the French society, Paris, is a very open society, and Hungary is a much more closed society. Does it make any problems for you to move between these different cultures?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I really think it's not far from our way of thinking. I don't think it's a problem for our generation, for young people working in Brussels with your colleagues. How do you see Hungary from that point of view?
My view to the current Hungarian situation is a very critical one. I think it was a very sad moment in our history when the Prime Minister told that we are against migrants and against refugees because we would like to keep our homogeneous Hungarian culture. I think so it's not the way. This is not the way we would like to go.
Mm-hmm. How to deal with this migration problem in plus when the country itself has serious economical, societal problems?
This is not the question of the Hungarian budget. The European Union almost 8 million euros gave for the Hungarian government for this purpose. And I think so we have to make a clear distinction. The European Union takes care of the migrants and the refugees, and there's a lot of financial aids and supports for them. On the other side, this is the duty of the Hungarian government, to work for the Hungarian population living in a small city.
So you personally, as working in the European Parliament as an opposite party, part of the opposite party, does the discussion work between the government and the opposition?
The government says that the opposition is not part of the Hungarian nation. This is the problem. The government, the Hungarian government, is not ready to talk to the Hungarian opposition. This is the problem.
Also, the opposition, I think, is very not homogeneous. I'm sorry.
Fragmented, would you like to say?
Yes, fragmented.
Yeah, that's
very
true.
much.
That's true.
It's true.
But
if it's true, how it can be effective?
This is a huge problem of the Hungarian society and politics, that the opposition is not homogeneous and not strong enough. And of course, that's the reason for that, for the rise of the far-right party of the Jobbik. The word left in Hungary has a very, very problematic connotation, let me say on that, because everybody thinks left means socialism.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, Orsia, how did it go?
It went well. I think it was really interesting to discuss about different topics.
It was a good experience.
It was.
Okay, Orsia, thanks so much for your time throughout this show. Thanks to you at home also for watching. That brings us to the end of this edition of Europe Now, brought to you, of course, from Hungary. Have a good week.